thank you to the previous presenters as well, because I thought that their presentation was very, very good, and it highlights a lot of the challenges that we are facing actually in the hydro industry as well. So if I may, I think I will be able to share my screen. Can you see this? Perhaps in a few microseconds. Yeah, here we are. Okay, my name is, as introduced, Pål-Tore Storli. I'm the Vice Coordinator of Joint Program for Hydropower within EERA. And first I would just like to present to you can you see this? Am I having some technical issues?
No, we can see you. I can see it. I think it works fine.
It should have shifted now. My slide should have shifted.
It has shifted now. I think there is a lag at your side, at your end, okay. Probably, but
it's the. Okay, so first I would like to just give a short introduction into the joint program for hydropower. So we are structured as two pillars of a bit more technical aspect. Then we have 4 cross-disciplinary topics or sub-programs, as you may know them. And I think actually this was inspired a lot by how the JP-Wind was organized a few years back when we initiated the joint program on hydropower to be started. We have a lot of members throughout entire Europe. Some countries are still lacking. We're working on that, but Brexit had its effect and other things as well. But we are still a joint program which is expanding. Hydropower technologies is actually quite diverse, and we have already heard about pumped storage hydropower. And the good things about pumped storage hydropower is that it's able to store excess electrical energy as potential energy, actually to a vast extent, both regarding power and also energy storage. Of course, we need to get this electricity back, and the response of pumped storage is very rapid, and you can have a quite flexible dispatch so that you're able to meet both consumer and producer volatility to find the balance. For reservoir hydropower, or some refer to it as storage hydropower, we don't have the possibility of taking excess electrical energy and storing it as potential energy, but it still has this rapid response and flexible dispatch, at least if the outlet of the power plant is not the river. In the case of the latter, there are more restrictions which are imposed on the power plant, but still there are a lot of reservoir hydropower plants available for rapid response and flexible dispatch. The last sort of type of technology is what we know as run-of-river hydropower. And that has more like volatile renewable energy source characteristics. You are able to produce whatever the flow in the river is, basically. And these two first ones here, the pumped storage hydropower and reservoir hydropower, are very well equipped to complementing the characteristics of wind energy. Let's talk about pumped storage hydropower first. So we can store a lot of energy when it's needed. It can also be a direct revenue increase benefit of having pumped storage available, because in case of a company owning some wind power production farm, also having the possibility of owning a pumped storage power plant. This will in turn change the merit order of the wind energy. So we are shifting the value of the wind energy as well, from being very volatile to not so volatile. And this will actually increase the revenues. So this is something that has been seen as a consequence of combining pumped storage, hydropower, and wind. Here's an example of a very direct combination of pumped storage, hydropower, and wind, which is found on the El Hierro island, on the Canary Islands. So this is basically it's a small island, so this is a small power plant as well. But this pumped storage power plant has enabled the island of El Hierro to actually become, at times, 100% renewable, just by the fact that it's able to balance consumption and production. And I won't discuss increase of revenues in this case because it's a very small island, so there's not a market per se. But it shows that the characteristics of pumped hydro and wind are very complementary. So it enables to have a balance between production and consumption in at least a small island. But this is basically the same feature in larger systems as well. So this is one existing project. Some new technologies that are emerging are trying to reduce cost basically and reuse the sites. And here we have a project in Germany called the Geildorf pilot project, where the foundation for wind turbines are also used as the upper reservoir for the pumped storage power plant. So here we can see that we have 4 wind turbines at the top of a mountainous region, where the reservoirs are located in the foundation of the wind turbines. So as they are producing power, the pumping action or the generating action is complementing the volatility of the wind energy extraction. If we could zoom a bit on the picture, because this has actually been I'm not sure where in the phase of completion this project is, but at least you can see the wind turbines here, and here we have the lower reservoir for the hydropower. Offshore wind are typically lacking close proximity to high mountains, at least in some parts of the world. In Japan, there is a very interesting project called the Yanbaru seawater pumped storage power plant, where they actually are pumping seawater. The medium is seawater, and they have made an artificial basin at the top of a hill close to the sea. And I'm thinking that this could be a really interesting thing to look further into, especially given the next slide I will show you. I have to admit that this Yanbaru power plant or pump storage power plant has been decommissioned. But as far as I know, this is not due to technical issues. It's due to the fact that the projections on electrical consumption didn't meet the expectations. So they struggled to have a net income for this power plant. But combining offshore wind and seawater pump storage might at many locations be a really interesting thing to look into. And teasing you about my next slide, I have to admit that being a Norwegian, I'm sort of prone to show you the Norwegian perspective. But in the backdrop of being member of joint program on hydropower, I don't think that is unfair either, because hydropower in many aspects is very much mapped with Norwegian flags. We have 50% of all reservoir capacity in Europe, and we have close to 100% electricity provided by hydropower. So even if I put on the Norwegian hat now, I don't think that's unfair to the general discussion. So if you make now a graph over the elevation just from this large city in southern parts of Norway to the Norwegian capital Oslo, we get this graph here showing the elevation. And here you see we're up at 1,214 meter elevation. And even here, if this is 100 kilometers from the starting point, see that the starting point could have been very close to the sea here as well. So you have locations in Norway which you have seawater and you have very high mountains very close to the fjords, basically. This could provide very efficient pumped storage of seawater. Okay, do we have any wind resources in Norway? Well, I don't think any Norwegian politician would promote onshore wind power these days. We had a relatively large development of onshore wind, which generated a lot of fuss, basically. But offshore, I think, is very much on the table. And I guess you have seen this figure. It's a figure from one of the EU reports showing that there is a very high potential for wind power in the North Sea region. And I'm thinking, why not investigate if pumped seawater at these very high locations in southern parts of Norway, strategically close to the continental Europe system, could be a really nice way of facilitating further development. Even if you don't consider pumped seawater storage, we have a lot of reservoir hydropower in southern parts of Norway. And talking about reservoir hydropower, even if you're not able to store excess electrical energy, you are able to, through this rapid response and flexible dispatch capabilities of reservoir hydropower, you're able to match the characteristics of wind power still, especially in a large system as the Norwegian. And I know actually that there are companies who are avoiding penalties due to inaccuracies on wind weather forecasts by having hydropower, reservoir hydropower, as sort of the backup for matching their obligation to the market. So this can also be a very, very good way of increasing the revenues, basically by avoiding penalties when you are producing power into the market. And this is an intra-corporation aspect. If you have both wind and hydro, you can do this. But you also, of course, see in the system price of different electrical energy systems that you have import and export of electrical power to the systems where the price is lowest, and this is happening on a large scale between Norway and Denmark. So here we can see that here we have a large export from Norway to Denmark, and then this is a day by day basis. So typically in the night, when the system price in Denmark is low, the Norwegian system is importing power. And we have several cables going to other countries other than Denmark as well. We have several to the Netherlands and to Germany, as well as we are constructing cables to UK now. So this will be a more prominent way of operating hydropower by having the possibility of entering different markets. Now, in fact, most of the large Norwegian reservoir hydropower plants are also located in the southern part of Norway. So this is taken from Google Earth. I have actually here put on pins on all the power plants in this part of Norway. Now this is lock, stock, and barrel. So this is from the smallest one to the biggest one. But we have many huge power plants here, which are actually operating between existing reservoirs. So the outlet to a power plant is not a river; it's another reservoir, and there is a huge potential of adding more power to those power plants by just having more units. And a report made by SINTEF a few years back identifies this potential as 20 gigawatts. And when I say gigawatts, of course, it's power, but also the duration of how this power can be provided is by far much better than any other storage technology existing today. So even if you can find battery storage plants which have the same power as typical hydropower plants, you can run a typical hydropower plant for much longer time than these battery power plants. So I think there's a huge potential for developing this North Sea system by better utilization of the Norwegian hydropower resources for a better match with the characteristics of wind, and also taking into consideration the need for the surrounding electrical energy markets and systems surrounding the North Sea. Well, what's the barriers? Well, we have already heard this mentioned several times in the previous presentation and questions. It's like NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everybody nods their head, but they don't want it to be close to their recreational areas and homes and etc. Increasing electricity prices is, of course, something that public basically don't want, and then the politicians are also quite reluctant to be responsible for increasing the prices. And actually today, one of the leaders of one of the parties on the winning side of the election here in Norway a couple of weeks ago, still a small party, but though they're on the majority side, he went out in media and said that he wanted a pause in the construction of this North Connect electrical cable between southern parts of Norway and UK, because we have a situation in Norway now where the electricity prices are really high. There's been a dry summer and a dry autumn, and the reservoirs are quite low, leading to high prices. And he was, like, of course, playing a political game on this. He don't want the prices to go up even higher, and says that, okay, we should pause this cable. What he didn't mention is that such cables are also providing us at times a very cheap electrical energy. So it was a sort of biased statement, I would say. But we find these barriers in all types of developments, and I'm guessing the wind power community knows of all these as well. To conclude, I'm a big fan, but I would prefer to see those wind turbines offshore rather than onshore, at least given the mood of the public here in Norway these days. We have been seeing some projects that have not included all relevant stakeholders sufficiently, so they have reserved a rather negative stamp, I would say, in media and in the public. So I'm a big fan of wind power, and I think wind and hydro are like a perfect match, basically. But as all type of technologies, they're subject to being implemented in hopefully good projects rather than bad projects. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think this time we should start with the chat before the room has time to think about a question or two. So, Paul, is there any?
Yeah, we've got one question on the chat from Thomas. Thomas Telsnick, and he's asking, Paul, are you aware of any cost estimates on the Geldorf hybrid wind tower concept?
No, I'm not aware of any cost estimates on that. So I would refer to the web page, which I had on my slide, or just Googling it. But it has come quite far in the construction phase, so I guess they have been able to find some net revenue mechanism for that project, and as all development projects, I'm guessing it's a sort of high cost to begin with, and as technology develops, it's expected that it will drop off, but I'm not sure of the level. No.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. So Nikos, maybe we've got time for a question in Amsterdam.
Yes, I think we have one question in the room.
Yep. Hi there, Arno van Wingeren here, Fraunhofer IWES. Yep, I share also your love for hydro power. So yes, in principle, hydro and wind would be an excellent match, and we really love each other. If you look at the previous presentation, there's supposed to be 1.3 terawatt wind in this wind capacity being installed in Europe, if all things goes to plan. Now, how much hydropower storage can you offer to match that kind of thing? Because it's nice to have the ping pong between Denmark and Norway, but we need quite a bit more of that.
It's a good question, and it's a question that points to the fact that it's sometimes difficult to agree on what is the important thing. Is power the important thing, or is energy storage the important thing? And I think both, basically. But at least this report I was referring to, in southern parts of Norway, without any new reservoirs being built, you can quite easily add 20 gigawatts to the existing power plants. How long this duration of this operation could be, I'm not sure. But the energy that could be provided is at least very high power for several hours, maybe days. And if we are seeing what has been written previously regarding this potential for hydropower being the green battery of Europe, it's for those longer duration periods where the wind isn't blowing that we see that reservoir hydro can play a huge part. So if you want high power for shorter durations, perhaps hydropower isn't what you're looking for. Of course, we can help to a great extent there as well, but it's like for the couple of weeks when the wind is a bit lower than normal. That's when the real true value of hydropower reservoirs can give an added benefit to the system. I guess batteries can give you high power for short durations. So these small oscillations or the medium-sized oscillations can perhaps be handled by other type of technologies, or using pumped storage, which you have in continental Europe in a better way as well. But I think the big benefit of hydropower in a European scale is perhaps the long duration of the high power that can be supplied.
Yeah, but I mean, on the power side, you need about 65 times more than that 20 gigawatts to match the power of the wind. And then for the storage, you need to store that kind of stuff for a couple of weeks, if possible. And then, of course, then you get the NIMBY against that.
Yeah, I don't consider hydropower to be the silver bullet which solves everything. I think for us to reach the goal of having this zero emission society in the future, we need to combine all possible efforts to make this happen. And I can't provide hydropower as a final solution, but it will be a strong contributor, I think, to getting there.
Great. I think on this message, I will have to stop now to move to the other presentation. Maybe we can, when we do the definition of the hybrid power plants, we should expand it to include this direct connection between wind and hydropower. I think it was very interesting. Thank you very much again for the very nice presentation, and